There are 7 continents on Earth, or is it 6? 5? Maybe 4? It's confusing. But for this video we'll be dealing with 7 continents because that's what I was taught at school. Europe, Asia, North America, South America, Africa, Antarctica and Australia. If you aren't watching this on either a plane, boat, space station or certain country we'll get into in a bit, then you are on one of these continents. But how did the continents get their names? Europe's name is not entirely clear to us. There are a couple ideas on where the name came from. Some believe the name comes from the Greek word for wide gazing to the Phoenician for evening. The most popular theory, however, is that its name comes from the ancient myth of Zeus and Europa. The tale goes that Zeus saw the Phoenician princess Europa on the seashore. Astounded by her beauty, he transformed into a beautiful white bull and approached her. Europa was so enamored by this wonderful creature, she not only placed garlands of flowers around its neck, but also climbed upon its back. And then Zeus in bull form ran off with her, like literally over the water, and abducted her to the Isle of Crete. It was on this island, however, they became lovers and she gave Zeus 3 sons. This tale of love, and by love I mean literal abduction, is thought to be where Europe's name eventually came from. Asia's name comes from the Greek Asia, which was first recorded as early as 440 BC by Herodotus in his histories. This, however, did not refer to the whole of what we now see as Asia, but merely the east bank of the Aegean Sea. The Greek word is ultimately thought to come from the Phoenician Asu, which means east, hence it being the name for the eastern bank of the sea, and the Akkadian Asu, which means to go out, to rise, in reference to the sun rising in the east, and Asia being the east in perception to Greece. The names of North and South America unsurprisingly both come from the same origin. It's actually an etymology I've covered in another video onto itself, but of course there's no harm in going over it once more. The name America comes from Amerigo Vespucci, and I seriously hope I said it right this time. An Italian explorer who, while may not have been the first person to lay foot on the land, but he was the first to realise the land was not connected to Asia but in fact a whole new land. It was German cartographer Martin Wurtzimüller, however, who was the first to name the land after him, when he made a map that labelled the land as America. When the Romans defeated the Carthaginians in the Third Punic War, they called their newly claimed land Africa. It was believed they got this name from the name of one of the native tribes there, the Afri, leading to Africa meaning the land of the Afri. An alternative idea for the name of the continent once again comes from the Phoenicians with their word afar, which means dust. This word put together with the Latin "ica" suffix means the land would translate to the land of dust in reference to North Africa's dusty desert climate, where the Romans first claimed the land. Antarctica comes from the romanization of the Greek Antarktiki, which means opposite to the Arctic. So I suppose if we know that Antarctica simply means opposite to the Arctic, then what does Arctic mean? Arctic comes from the Greek Artikos, meaning near the bear, northern. This is referring to one of the 2 bear-based northern constellations, either Ursa Major or Ursa Minor. Finally, we have Australia, which is the name of the continent and the biggest nation of that continent. Much like America, I've explained in a previous video Australia's name. Auster is the Latin term for the southern wind and appeared on compasses. Terra Australis was the idea that there must have been a continent on the southern hemisphere of the Earth, due to the huge amount of land in the north. Terra Australis was even drawn on maps, and when Australia was finally discovered, it eventually adopted a variation of the name Terra Australis. Now, the name of the continent of Australia seems to bring up a bit of confusion. When I was asking my dad to name all the continents, he referred to it as Australasia, and when I was a kid I swear it was called Oceania. So where do these names come from then? Well, I guess we can thank New Zealand for these names. Technically, New Zealand is not a part of the Australia continent. Oceania is a region that includes most of the Australia continent as well as New Zealand, and Australasia is a region within that region. Oceania's name was coined by Danish geographer Conrad Multbrun from the French Oceanie, while Australasia was coined by Charles de Brosses, derived from Latin for South of Asia. So what continent is New Zealand on then? Zealandia is a part of a continental crust that broke away from Australia and became almost completely submerged. However, in 2017, a group of geologists have concluded that Zealandia has fulfilled the requirements to be considered a continent in its own right. The name Zealandia was proposed by Bruce Lyondike in 1995. So that's the name for the continents that we all live on. But what if I told you there were continents before the ones that we all live on today? Our world was once one huge supercontinent called Pangaea, which eventually split into Laurasia and Gondwana. And there's plenty of other continents that used to be on our Earth. But how did they get their names? Well, that's a video for another time. If you're interested in that is. Why don't you tell me down below?